Gervonta, Tank Davis's latest training camp have fans buzzing. His physique looks noticeably bulked up and fight ready. The power, speed, and focus he's showing are sending a clear message to Jake Paul. He's coming for the knockout. After seeing Tank's new size and power in training, even Terrence Crawford couldn't help but react, and what he said got the boxing world talking. He stated, "He's very explosive. He's very explosive, and man, he be cracking them dudes." Hearing that from a pound-for-pound great like Crawford says it all. When someone at his level praises your power, it means the knockout talk isn't just hype anymore. Fans immediately started flooding the comments, saying Jake Paul might have bitten off more than he can chew this time. The energy around Tank feels different, heavier, colder, more dangerous. It's like everyone knows what's coming, they just don't know when. And if Crawford's right, that moment could end with Jake Paul flat on the canvas. Even the Wade concept noticed something different about Tank this time. His focus, his body language, everything feels locked in.
Tank Davis is taking Jake Paul more seriously than potentially I thought he would. And usually that's the downfall of everyone that fights Jake, but there's a reason why. And it's not just because the money he's guaranteed, but it seems like there's a little bit extra going on that I need to explain.
It's not just about the payday anymore. There's a deeper drive behind Tank's camp. You can almost feel the intensity in the way he trains, like he's on a mission to prove something. When a fighter like Tank starts taking things personally, that's when he becomes truly dangerous. Jake might be used to entertainers, but this version of Tank looks like a man ready to send a message. And if that mindset carries into the ring, this fight could end much quicker than anyone expects. The Wade concept broke down Jake Paul's possible strategy. Man, it sounds like he plans to use every ounce of his physical advantage.
What we generally think may happen in this fight is that Jake Paul will probably use his size, his frame, and his power to try to land big shots, not throw a ton of punches, and not gas himself out against Tank, who, again, this is an exhibition. Yes, there'll be judges and someone, I guess, will win, is what they're saying, but does that mean that someone actually has a win-loss on their record? No, because you can't sanction something like this.
Jake knows he can't outspeed Tank, so he's relying on size, reach, and power to make it a physical fight. But that's a dangerous game to play with someone as explosive as Davis. One wrong move, one mistimed punch, and Jake could walk right into a counter that changes everything. Fans are wondering if this will be a test of patience or pure chaos. Either way, both men know that even in an exhibition, pride is on the line, and that's what makes this fight so unpredictable. When it came to Tank's game plan, the Wade concept broke it down perfectly, highlighting what truly makes him so deadly.
Tank, on the other hand, who already is a low output puncher, is going to look to utilize his speed, his head movement, his quickness, his agility, his angles, his footwork, his defense to offense transition, and vice versa to catch Jake when he does eventually open up with bigger punches and make him pay. Also, he's going to look to slow Jake down and potentially work him into those later rounds to where Tank can still be explosive. And when I look at this little exchange from Jake and Ray Ford,
Tank isn't the kind of fighter who wastes energy. He studies, waits, and then explodes when the moment's right. His timing, angles, and defensive rhythm could frustrate Jake into making big mistakes. And once that happens, Tank's counters can end the night in an instant. The way he transitions from defense to offense is pure art. Quick, sharp, and punishing. That's why even analysts are nervous for Jake despite his size edge. Because when Tank finds his range, it's not a fight anymore. It's target practice. Even Joe Rogan couldn't hide his amazement after seeing Tank's new shape and fight-ready focus. The power, the control, the patience, everything about him looked locked in. He stated, "Tank is one of the most interesting fighters to watch because he's so different. His style is so different, He's so economical." Rogan nailed what fans have been noticing. Tank's not just a brawler. He's a technician disguised as a knockout artist. Every movement has purpose. Every feint has intent. His new bulked up frame makes him look even more dangerous, but it's the calmness behind it that really scares people. He doesn't waste punches. He waits, analyzes, and strikes only when it matters. It's that mix of patience and power that gives him the aura of a fighter who already knows how the fight ends. And when Rogan continued, he explained what makes Tank such a nightmare once he starts reading his opponents in real time. He stated, he puts pressure on guys without throwing too many punches, and then he starts to figure holes souls out and the way he can explode and move in with one shot. That's the signature Tank moment, the quiet before the storm. He stalks you, studies you, and then in one violent second, everything changes. His explosiveness isn't just physical, it's psychological. The way he switches from stillness to chaos keeps even seasoned fighters frozen. And now, with his bigger frame and sharper focus, that single shot power looks even more devastating. Rogan's reaction says it all. Tank isn't just fighting anymore, he's calculating destruction. But not everyone is convinced that Tank's power and momentum mean everything. Lamont Roach, the man who was supposed to get a rematch with Tank, isn't staying silent. Instead of facing him again, Tank chose the blockbuster Jake Paul fight, and Roach made sure to call it out publicly.
Don't think you're gonna do bad business with me and think it's just gonna be okay. No, we're gonna call you out every single time. Don't duck a fight with me and fight a YouTuber that's 200 pounds and think it's okay. It's not okay. I don't care what, unless you took the proper, steps to do so. You could have told me that. You could have told me, all right, look, we're gonna take this Jake Paul fight, or your team could have reached out and be like, all right, look, we're gonna take this Jake Paul fight, and we'll circle back, or we won't. We just don't want to fight. It's cool, all right, but we're contracted to fight for a certain amount of purse and whatever the case may be. Like, it's not. It don't work like that. You can't breach a contract. Just to let you know, you cannot do that. That's how business works. That's just not like.
The tension between them has been brewing for months, and this just poured gasoline on the fire. Roach made it clear that this wasn't just about pride, it was about respect and business. He feels Tank broke an unspoken code by chasing a viral payday instead of honoring their fight deal. And when a boxer feels betrayed like that, words cut deeper than punches. The energy behind his statement showed real frustration, and fans could sense the personal sting in every word. This isn't just boxing talk anymore. It's business, ego, and unfinished bad blood. Roach didn't stop there. He went even further, questioning Tank's mindset after choosing Jake Paul over him.
I doubt it. Like he said, he's retiring. I believe him. It's going to be hard to go fight Jake Paul when you were supposed to fight me and then come back to regular boxing and fight someone else. So I think he really is going to retire because, one, I think he's scared, and two, I just don't think he want to be made a mockery of.
He's hinting that Tank might not come back to face real contenders after this. The tone felt sharp, almost like Roach wanted to expose something deeper. Fans picked up on the tension right away. The mix of disbelief and disappointment in his voice said a lot. He made it sound like Tank is walking away from boxing rather than facing unfinished business. Whether it's confidence or fear, Roach clearly believes something's changed in Tank. And that idea that one of boxing's most feared punchers might be dodging smoke has everyone talking. Former world champion Paulie Malignaggi didn't hold back when breaking down the business side of this fight. He pointed out something that most fans completely missed. This isn't a sanctioned fight, it's an exhibition.
I don't think people are talking about this enough. The fact that it's not a real fight, it's an exhibition. And people always talk about Jake setting up his fights. I personally don't think Jake sets up his fights. I think, they're sanctioned fights, and, you're risking a federal crime if you set up a sanctioned fight. So I personally don't think, when I watch it, I don't. I just think he's fighting opponents that, are not with it anymore or are too small for him and whatnot. But in this situation, it is an exhibition. So you've got to keep in mind that this could be set up. This could be like WWE. This one could be set up. I don't know. I'm not saying it is, but this is not a sanctioned fight, champ. This is an exhibition. And an exhibition means you cannot bet on it. You cannot bet on the result. If you remember, this is why they changed the Mike Tyson fight from an exhibition to a real fight, because they realized, an exhibition, you could stage it and they couldn't take bets on it. So this is an exhibition. There is no betting on it. So that means
Paulie's take sent shockwaves through boxing fans online. The idea that the fight might not follow the same rules as a regular pro bout made people question everything. If it's truly an exhibition, anything could happen behind the scenes. It changes the stakes, the intensity, and maybe even the outcome. And when someone like Paulie, who's seen every trick in the sport, raises that flag, fans start paying attention. Suddenly, what looked like a mega fight starts to feel more like a mystery. Paulie went even deeper, warning fans not to get carried away with predictions until they understand what kind of fight this really is.
I'm not saying people are going crazy with the opinions, who's going to win, who's going to lose. You don't know what size gloves they're going to wear. You don't even know if they're going to stage the whole thing, because this is something that as an exhibition, it's not illegal to stage it. So I think this could be all kinds of crazy, wacky stuff. This is a bit of a circus, in my opinion.
He called it like he saw it. A potential circus. No one knows what gloves they'll wear, what limits they'll have, or if the whole thing is just entertainment wrapped as boxing. That kind of uncertainty adds both excitement and doubt. It's the kind of chaos that keeps people watching, but also makes purists shake their heads. For someone like Paulie, who values the sport's integrity, the unpredictability felt more like a red flag than a thrill, and that's why his comments hit differently. It's not hate, it's concern from a veteran who knows how easily boxing can blur into show business. Then Paulie started analyzing the fight itself, and his tone shifted from business to pure boxing logic, because the size difference here is massive.
If they don't stage it and don't kind of set up a sort of a mild sparring session, I'd say Davis has a chance. Depends on the size of the gloves. Because here's the thing, Jake is probably 100 pounds bigger than the guy. You know, that's a lot of weight, Carl. You know, you've been in a boxing ring, that still counts. And if you make the gloves small, Gervonta could technically hurt Jake even if he hits him. But the problem is that the gloves are small. Jake could also hurt Gervonta because Gervonta's so small. Gervonta's so much smaller than him, you know. So do you make the gloves big, and then really who's got an advantage? I don't know. You know, technically Gervonta's a lot better boxer, but he's so much smaller. I've stood next to Jake. Jake's a big guy. It's like I said, it's a bit of a circus freak show, and that's why I don't put it out of the question that this exhibition could be a bit staged in the ring.
He laid it out perfectly. Jake Paul could outweigh Gervonta Davis by almost 100 pounds. That alone changes everything. The gloves, the distance, the power. All those details suddenly become life and death factors in the ring. And while Tank's the better boxer by far, physics doesn't lie. Paulie's breakdown made the fight sound less like a fair contest and more like a wild experiment. It's that imbalance, skill versus size, that makes this matchup both fascinating and controversial. You can hear it in his tone, intrigued but uneasy. Paulie addressed the noise surrounding Jake Paul's reputation, the rumors, the lawsuits, the claims of fixed fights.
Anyone who talks
well, that's because his fights have been sanctioned, and I personally don't think he has set up the other fights. I personally think, you know, like Mike Tyson, he had no legs left. You know what I mean? To tell you the truth, I thought that was an easy one to bet and call, was that Jake would beat Mike Tyson. And even some of these other fights, you know, they're smaller. Jake doesn't set up his fights. I think what he does is he stacks the deck against his opponents in those fights. So I wouldn't call them staged, but they're deck stackers, you know, so he has an advantage. In this situation, though, you know, an exhibition can be staged. I'm not saying anything that's out of the question. You know, you're allowed to stage an exhibition. It's WWE is essentially exhibitions, you know. So this is not a sanctioned fight. This is different from all the ones he's done before.
He didn't accuse, but he didn't sugarcoat it either. Paulie made it clear that while Jake doesn't rig fights, he plays smart, stacking the deck in his favor with careful matchmaking and timing. And this time, with an exhibition, the rules are even looser. That's where the real uncertainty lies. The way Paulie framed it, this isn't about cheating, it's about control. Jake's built an empire by turning boxing into spectacle, and this fight might be his boldest act yet. For Paulie, it's not about who wins, it's about whether the fight itself is what it claims to be. Ryan Garcia didn't hold back when he heard about Jake Paul facing Gervonta Davis instead of a legitimate opponent in his own division. You could hear the frustration in his tone. He felt it was a slap in the face to real boxing.
Pissed me the fuck off, bro.
Yeah,
like,
why?
It's just disappointing on mainly Jake's end. You know, we're not falling for the Disney Channel bit no more. We're not falling for you're not a fighter no more. We're not falling for that. You know, you're ranked as a cruiserweight and you're out here trying to fight a lightweight. And then on top of it, you were just talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. That doesn't make no sense. And, you know, I just felt like it was a disgrace to boxing and kind of...
Ryan's reaction wasn't just emotion, it came from a fighter's pride. He's been in the ring, he knows what real matchups look like, and this one, to him, crossed the line. The idea of a ranked cruiserweight calling out a lightweight sounded absurd to him. Fans echoed his words online, agreeing that the matchup felt more like spectacle than sport. For Ryan, it wasn't about hype or views, it was about protecting boxing's integrity. And in that moment, his anger said what many purists were already thinking. Ryan didn't let the topic die guy there. He doubled down, calling Jake Paul's move a bad decision, not just for him, but for the sport as a whole.
It was not a good move by Jake Paul. You know, I understand people saying, you know, Gervonta got to go get his money, you know, blah, blah, blah. But, like, we're not talking about that shit. We're talking about the sport, bro. We're not talking about, oh, you got to get that money, bro. Yeah, but everybody's open to criticism. That's the whole point of this media shit. That's why they talk about basketball players. They don't talk about, well, LeBron's making too much. Like, nobody cares, bro. If LeBron's missing the shot, he's missing the fucking shot. So at the end of the day, bro, I just thought it was a disgrace to the sport.
He made it clear this wasn't about money or fame. It was about respect for boxing itself. To him, both fighters opened themselves up to criticism by turning the sport into a business play. His comparison to other athletes hit hard, making fans see how money talk often overshadows real competition. Ryan's tone wasn't jealous. It was disappointed, like a fighter watching something sacred turn into a sideshow. And when someone like Garcia says it's a disgrace to the sport, it stings, because he's speaking as one of boxing's few crossover stars who actually cares about legacy. Then Ryan went straight to the core issue, the illusion this fight could create for casual fans who don't understand weight classes.
You got the casuals, right? The casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Yeah. And if Gervonta Davis doesn't f Jake Paul, they're gonna think Jake Paul is some pound for pound champion type of fighter. Yeah. And to me, that's just it's tricking the public, and it's kind of bullshit, bro, at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if Gervonta was Jake Paul's size, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. There probably wouldn't even be a fight. Yeah, you know what I mean? So
he warned that if Jake even survives against Tank, it could twist the public's perception of what real boxing looks like. That's the danger he was pointing to. Not the fight itself, but what it represents. To him, this isn't just an unfair fight. It's a trick on fans who don't know better. Ryan spoke with the tone of someone defending the sport's credibility, not his own ego. His words carried a mix of frustration and realism, the kind that comes from watching the line between entertainment and competition fade away. For him, it's simple. If Tank were Jake's size, there'd be no debate, no hype, just domination. David Benavidez shared a balanced but honest view on Tank Davis taking the Jake Paul fight. He didn't bash it, but he made it clear where his real concern lies.
Tank accepting that fight, but I would tell you my problem about that. Now, you know, I don't want nobody to feel mad. Okay. Not about the fight. I just want to see Tank fight Shakur Stevens, Devin Haney, all the fights, man. Like, you know what I mean? I think it's Tank, you know, as a world champion first, he should give us those fights. Because those are the fights I want to see. Not taking anything away from the fight with Jake Paul. I know it's gonna be a big fight with big money, but it's not really, it's competitive to the point where it's not really about the skill. It's about the size and the skill. You know what I mean? Because Tank is way smaller than Jake Paul, you know, but we know that if he lands a good shot, it could be over for Tank. But also, in my opinion,
Benavidez's tone showed both respect and frustration. He understands the money and hype behind the event, but deep down, he wants to see Tank test himself against true champions. For him, boxing is about legacy, not spectacle. Hearing him talk, you could sense he's a fan as much as a fighter, craving those matchups with Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, and other elites. His words reflect what many hardcore fans feel: excitement for Tank's success, but disappointment that the sport keeps chasing views instead of greatness. It's that mix of admiration and impatience that gives his comment real weight. Benavidez didn't stop there. He broke down why the fight doesn't feel like a fair contest from a boxing perspective.
Jake Paul is so big that if he lands the right shot, maybe if he lands in the back of the head or in the side of the head, it might be over too. So it's not really about skill. You know, it's not really about skill. It's just about, you know, two size difference and stuff like that. And I don't want to sound like I'm hating or nothing, but I'd rather, like I said, I'd rather see Tank with Shakur Stevens. In my opinion, if Tank fights Shakur Stevens, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia too again, he beats all them guys, imagine how much bigger the fight is with Jake Paul.
He emphasized that the size gap between Jake and Tank completely changes the equation. No matter how skilled Tank is, he's going up against a much larger man, and that adds unnecessary risk. To Benavidez, this isn't about proving who's better, it's about surviving a mismatch. Yet he still praised Tank's courage and confidence to take such a challenge. His deeper point was clear: real competition lies within his division, not across weight classes. And if Tank beats names like Haney or Shakur first, then a Jake Paul fight would feel legendary, not questionable. Benavidez ended on a high note, showing just how much respect he truly has for Gervonta Davis as a fighter.
He's one of the best to ever do it. He's a dangerous fighter. Right. He's probably the fighter closest to Mike Tyson that we've seen in the past, I don't know, since Mike Tyson. Right. You know what I mean? So yeah. it's like you know, at the end of the day, that's what I want to see. You know, I don't know where I mean, we obviously know what Gervonta wants to do, but I'm just speaking as a fan perspective. That's what I want.
We want to see those fights too, absolutely.
100%. He called Tank one of the most dangerous and electrifying boxers since Mike Tyson, a comparison that instantly grabbed attention. Coming from a knockout artist like Benavidez, that's a huge compliment. His words reminded everyone why Tank draws such massive hype. The raw power, the explosiveness, the intimidation factor. Still, his message stayed grounded. Admiration mixed with a fan's hunger to see Tank prove it against the best. It's not hate, it's hope. Benavidez spoke like someone who loves the sport and wants its biggest stars to keep the spotlight on real boxing, not just spectacle. At the end of the day, one thing is clear: Gervonta "Tank" Davis has the whole boxing world talking, from his bulked up physique to the reactions of legends like Joe Rogan, Terrence Crawford, Ryan Garcia, and David Benavidez. Everyone has something to say. Some believe he's about to shock the world and shut Jake Paul down, while others think he's chasing spectacle instead of legacy. Either way, this fight has become more than just an exhibition. It's a test of pride, power, and perception. Tank knows exactly what he's doing. He's playing the game smart, building hype, collecting the bag, and keeping fans guessing at every step. Yes, the size difference is real, and yes, some people are questioning his choice, but if there's one thing we've learned about Tank, it's that he always finds a way to silence the doubt once the bell rings. What do you think? Do you think Tank is making the right move by fighting Jake Paul? Is this fight good for boxing or just good for business? And what happens if Jake Paul actually lands that one big shot? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tune in for more videos like this, because the drama in boxing is just getting started.